Ulysses Diaz, welcome to the show, people in Miami. Thank you so much for being here.
Round number one, there's that fast start. That might be it. And that is the fastest knockout in bare-knuckle fighting championship history.
Uly is a professional boxer, MMA fighter, bare-knuckle fighter, and he holds the world record for the fastest knockout in combat sports history at just 3 seconds.
That's right.
Which is extremely impressive and obviously unheard of. Uly the Monster.
Yeah.
Where did you get the nickname Monster from?
My boxing coach, his name was Josh Dempsey. He was a fighter himself. And I was 225 pounds of like pure muscle.
You looked like a monster.
I looked like a monster. So he would call me his pet monster. He's like, hey man, hey everybody, hey, meet my pet monster. And the name stuck.
And the name stuck. It's a good nickname. I mean, it is very intimidating for the industry that you're in. Do you ever feel that people, when you're walking down the streets, are intimidated by you?
I do. Especially back when I had dreadlocks, when I had the dreads on my head, and I've had gold teeth in my mouth for the last 20 years. I've had tattoos all over my body for the last 20 plus years. You know I have this intimidating look on my face. I know my nose is flat from fighting. It's, I got scars on my face. So I do, but I take pride. For an example, if we get in an elevator, right, and you're in the elevator and we don't know each other, I go out of my way to say, hey, how you doing, and try to ease the tension.
Yeah, someone's like, oh my God.
Right, and whether that's men or women, I like to ease the tension, and I like to show that I really go out of my way to be a friendly person, to be a great person, to be a lovable person. I like to be good to people. The only time I'm a monster is when I'm in the ring, the cage, or the bare knuckle ring. Aside from that,
you're a really nice guy. You're not a monster at all. That's like a stage name.
Thank you. Right.
It's for real though.
Yeah. So I take pride in being good to people. You know, I take pride in going out of my way to help anybody that I can when I can, and I love that. I carry that, and I know it's like an oxymoron because I do look scary, but I like to be good.
Right. On the inside, you're not scary
at all.
I want to know everything from the beginning. What was baby Uly like? What was your childhood like? How did you get started in this?
I've always loved fighting since I was a kid. As far back as I can remember, I always loved it. It always caught my attention. I always had to do something with it. As a kid, growing up in Miami, I grew up with a single mom, great mom, still around to this day, thank God. But she worked her butt off to try to keep a roof over her head and clothes on my back. So when she was away, I had a lot of time to myself. It got me into little trouble here and there. I get in trouble in school. I get in fights in school. Right. I started training at age 6 because I had family coming over from Cuba. Boxing is huge in Cuba, and they'd come over and they would train me at the house. A lot of more amateur boxers. They train me at the house. Then we'd go to Tropical Park where it's huge in Miami for amateur boxing. And it was, like I said, it was always part of my life. It was always in and out. It was never like steady until I got older, which we'll get into. So in high school, I'd get into fights, and I got into one. They got me arrested. So that started my juvenile detention time, and then came out of that suspension. Got in a fight again. I got expelled from school. I ended up going to.
How old were you?
I was 16, 17 at the time, and that kind of started my. I like to say my path down because I never had a male role model. I didn't have an uncle. I didn't have a dad. I didn't have anybody telling me like, yo kid, you can use your talent for other things instead of doing what you're doing.
You didn't have that male figure. I saw that you actually didn't reconnect really with your dad until you were already an adult. Right,
exactly. So I thought what I was doing was cool. I felt like I was the protector of my friends, like I was a defender of my friends.
Never the bully, always a protector.
And then as a young adult, I signed up to the military. I went to the Coast Guard, went through boot camp, got out, got stationed on a ship, and then 11 months into that, I was on my way to diesel mechanic school in Virginia. I made a stop in Tallahassee, Florida, the night before, and I was in a club with a friend of mine. As it would happen,
got in a fight.
And that was the beginning of my journey to prison.
Do you feel like you were, before getting to prison and all of that, were you always easily triggered? You were considered a hothead?
I was considered a hothead. I was easily triggered. I didn't have any structure in my life. I didn't have any direction. I go to the military, trying to fix myself, trying to get myself some structure, trying to do things right. I ended up getting in a fight there, got arrested, get kicked out of the Coast Guard, get sent back to Miami, and I get put on probation. I'm 21 years old, I'm on probation, I'm out of the military. The structure and everything I was looking for is out the window. Once I get in that fight in Miami, I violate my probation. They send me up to Tallahassee. Tallahassee sends me to prison. I get 2.5 years for an aggravated battery.
Yeah, so what was that time like in prison? Because there, you know, outside of prison, you're the tough guy, you're the fighter.
Right.
People are intimidated by you, but now you go to prison where many of them
Right.
are just like you, if not even worse.
Absolutely.
So how did you navigate that time in there?
Man, you know, it's a weird thing to say, but I flowed right into it. You know, I was a young man. I was 23 years old. I was never disrespectful, you know, and not with anybody. It don't matter if you were a janitor or a CEO. I always respected people, and I knew how to speak to people. As a young man, you go in there thinking it's like a movie. Like when you watch a movie, you think about prison, you're like, all right, I can't let that happen to me. I can't let this happen to me.
Right, and people coming in with like making up knives and
Right.
just something wild.
Right. But as you go along, you learn the steps, and you learn the way it is, and you learn how to, you know, stay to yourself and what to do and what not to do. And thank God I was able to make it out of there 2.5 years later. But ended up getting out of prison shortly after turning 25. I have a childhood friend, Pitbull. He's been my childhood friend since we were 11 years old. Me and him have always been as tight as can be. We call each other brothers, you know, we're as close as family could be. And he was on his way up to fame at the time I got out in 2006.
Did you go to middle school or something?
Yes,
with
we
him?
went to middle school. We met in middle school. We met in 7th grade and became best of friends. Slept at each other's houses. We lived together for a while. Growing up, went to, you know, as like when we got to high school, went to different schools, but always kept in contact. I would always see each other. So he always told me, hey, when you get out, you know, as soon as you get out, let me know. I got something for you. So I got out, contacted him immediately, and that's when I started being a security firm. I was, you know, part of his security team. Working
How long was this for?
From 2006 to like early 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 years.
And yeah, it was a few years, and it went great. The thing about it was that back then, he wasn't who he was now. So the shows weren't consistent. It wasn't as consistent as I needed it to be. I wasn't making money consistently. And I came out of prison a 25-year-old man with 2 kids.
How old were your kids at the time?
I had a stepson that was, in 2006, he was 9, and my daughter was 5.
Before Pitbull, when your kids, with your kids, did they know that you were in prison, or what did you tell them?
No, they knew I was in prison. They would come visit me maybe 2 to 3 times a month. They would drive up with
so
my
they were
mom,
well aware of
or
everything.
my kid's mom at the time would drive up. And yeah, they would come see me. They knew I was in prison, but you're talking about a 7, 8, 9, and then you're talking about like a 4, 5, 6-year-old little girl. So they really didn't comprehend what was going on until they got older, and you know, they see pictures and stuff like that. So I went from surrounding myself with somebody who was
on the come up,
was on the come in, and was eventually going to be who he is today. I had this conversation with him because something went real well for me on the street, and you think at the time that it's never going to end, that this is going to last forever. So I had this conversation, hey man, I love you, but you know, I'm doing this. I think I got something going on. He's like, oh, hey, I love you, man. You know, God bless you. Best of luck.
Yeah,
no problem. Yeah, and again, we never lost contact. We spoke this whole time, but I just wasn't working with him. Now, from 2009 to 2016, I was in Colorado. I was, you know, part of the Green Rush.
Yeah, so you went to Colorado, part of the Green Rush, started growing there.
Yeah, we're growing weed over there. Took Miami to Colorado and just started doing things over there.
That was a great time for that, too.
Right. And then one day in Colorado, this was in February of 2016, I flew back to Miami, and because somebody down here had been calling me to try to help them out with something. It was a complete setup. What I walked into like a video from Cops, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like a TV show from Cops. I walked in, it was a complete setup, and here started this whole new whirlwind of trouble.
So you were already doing well in Colorado. Then you came back to Miami as a good person to help someone out.
I came to Miami for a few days. I still had Colorado going. I had
Right.
I had
It was just like a break. Like, I'm here, I'm going to help out a friend.
It was, I'll come back for 2 days, and I'll fly right back to do what I'm doing. In those 2 days,
You got set up.
Shit hit the fan, as they like to say.
Wow.
And got locked up.
How long were you locked up for?
I was locked up 30 days. So then I flew back to Colorado, started trying to figure out things there, but I already had this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And all this time growing up, and in 2016, I'm 35 years old. From the time I was a kid to the time I'm 35 years old, I knew when I was doing wrong. You always had that feeling of like, you know, I'm doing wrong, but then you get away with it, you get some money, and that kind of feeling goes away.
You think it's going to last forever.
Right, and that feeling kind of goes away. Now in 2016, when this happened, it was a sickening feeling in the pit of my stomach. I'm not getting away with this. This might be the end of the road for me, in terms of I'm going to prison.
Before we get to that moment of you basically getting your life back together, right? What lessons did you learn in prison that helped shape you?
Honestly, the lessons I learned in prison that helped me be who I am is just that, you know, I was a young man while I was in there. I found myself out in the sense that I knew I was a leader. I wasn't a follower. I didn't listen to somebody telling me to do something unless I felt it was for the greater cause, you know, better for myself and better for people around me. I knew I was better than the situation I was at, you know. I knew my mom had raised a better man than that. I knew I was a better man. I knew I was a better father than that. You know, I knew I was a better person than that. Now, this is all hindsight because at the moment, I knew I was learning these lessons slowly, but I still was living this lifestyle that it wasn't my fault, it's everybody else's.
You weren't taking any accountability
I wasn't
at the
taking
moment?
any accountability. That's one thing I wasn't doing.
Did you ever feel that, you know, these were just the cards you were dealt and this was your life and this is what you were destined to be?
Yes, I did feel that a lot. I did feel these are my cards that I was dealt, and I felt, again, as a young man going to prison, I thought I was doing the cool thing. I thought I was, you know, I was the big homie now, and people are gonna listen to me when I get out because exactly. Stupid stuff that if you don't have anybody around you, you know, especially if you're a young man and you don't have a male role model telling you, yo, pulling you by your ear and going, man, listen, this is not the way. This is all this thing that everything that you think is cool now, you're gonna grow up and see how stupid you were.
You were just a lost soul at the time, basically.
I was a very lost soul. Very lost soul.
I'm sure you meant well, but you just, that's it. Those were the cards you were dealt and that's what you were doing.
Well, one thing about it is, you know, might sound dumb, but I never did bad to good people. I never, you know, when I was out there doing whatever I did, I never did something to a guy who worked a 9-to-5 job or nothing. I was doing things to people who were in the same business as I was.
Have you ever watched Dexter?
Yes, exactly. I was the Dexter of the streets.
The Dexter of the streets, you know, like, oh, let me penalize all the bad people.
I was the Dexter of the streets.
You had in Colorado that moment, that come to Jesus moment.
Exactly. I was sitting in my living room one day, and I had been up all night. I couldn't sleep, and I just remember just crying. You know, I was really just crying. I was sobbing. And I got to my knees that night and I go, please God, which I had said probably 1,000 times before, the same thing. Please God, I promise if you get me out of this, I won't ever do it again.
Yeah.
You know, which I'm sure everybody watching this has said it a couple times.
Everyone says that over and over again, but.
But this day I just felt something different. I felt like I really meant it. You know, I really meant it. And I was like, please God, I promise I'll never do it again. You know, this is early in the morning. Got some rest, got up. I packed my car with anything that fit in my car.
What was different about this time?
Everything that had happened, I just kept seeing my kids growing up without me. You know, that was a huge factor.
Were you close to them at the time?
I've always been very close to my kids, very close to them now. I saw them growing up without me. I saw just myself, I was just tired of my own shit, you know, tired of my own things. And I finally felt like I was gonna be accountable. I want to hold myself accountable for everything that had happened. So like I said, I packed my car with everything that fit in it. I left beds, I left couches, I left TVs, I left everything that didn't fit in the car. Called the transport to take my car back to Florida. I jumped on a plane, came to Miami, and immediately got into the boxing gym. Went to my original boxing gym from over 10 years ago, Fifth Street Gym, and just started training. I had no intentions to fight or anything, just started training. This was end of November 2016 until the end of December 2016, right before 2017.
Wait.
I'm back in Miami, I'm training. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. So in December, right before 2017, I told my coach, I'm like, man, you know what? I want to take a fight, man. And this was like I wanted an Instagram picture. I wanted to tell my kids I did it. Yeah, exactly. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. So they came back 2 days later. He told me, all right, there's a fight January 27th of 2017, which now what is it? It'll be 6 years now since that day. You know, it was kind of like a gut check. Like, damn, am I really ready to do this? Like, I don't know.
Like, not much time to prepare.
Yeah, right. And I haven't done amateur boxing. I did amateurs when I was 19, 20 years old. So it's been a long time. Yeah, I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it. The end of January, we flew out to Dominican Republic. January 27th was my fight. And I had my first fight, and in the first round, I knocked a guy out. And when I knocked this guy out and I won the fight, and I get my hand raised in front of, you know, probably about like 10 people that came with me.
It was validation.
It was not only was the validation, more importantly to me, it was like, I felt like this is where I needed to be. I felt it's a weird feeling. It's hard to explain to people. You have to have the feeling for yourself. But I felt like, man, I have to continue this. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to be doing. And from that moment forward, I did nothing but train.
Yeah.
I did nothing but train. I was still, at the beginning of my career, still involved with the street a little bit, but the gym and boxing was taking more of my time. It kept taking more and more of my time.
Kept you distracted.
Kept me distracted. I was still going to court for the thing that I caught in 2016. We're still going to court for that, trying to figure out what's going on. But in the meantime, I'm doing fights. You know, I did 4 fights back to back. Then finally I had my first fight in Miami that year too.
And something also very important to know is that Uly started professionally fighting at 35.
Right.
Which is the age where most boxers and fighters are already retired.
Absolutely.
And that's when he was just getting started, professionally that is.
Right.
And well, his career has completely taken off since then.
Right.
So that sets you apart big time as well.
It does. It does set me apart when it comes to this. Because as I started my career, a lot of people were like, how old are you?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? But I was living the dream. I was living a dream.
Did that ever make you double?
Never. Once
You
I
didn't
got
doubt
it,
yourself,
I
or-
never doubted myself. Fighting saved my life, you know. And I started getting that feeling of it saving me. It's keeping me away from things. It's keeping me out of circles that I don't need to be in. Eventually, once I started my career in the beginning of 2017, by the beginning of 2018, I had knocked everybody out in fights, and I had knocked everybody out of my circle that I didn't want to deal with anymore. I didn't want to, that's it. I wasn't doing anything that had to do with the street no more. I wasn't taking in phone calls. I wasn't speaking to anybody that I didn't need to speak to.
And that's once the fighting took off. And
That's well, not even. The fighting hadn't even taken off yet. I just knew this is what I wanted to do. I was also, at the beginning of my boxing career in 2017, I was in Atlanta, which kept me away from Miami, and they were filming this movie called Den of Thieves.
Okay, yeah.
It was 50 Cent, Gerard Butler, and a couple other stars. And I was part of that. You know, I had a little...
Little
if you
cameo.
blink, yeah, a little cameo. If you blink, you'll miss the cameo. But I had a
Oh, you
cameo
were
in
in
that. But I was training them. I was training them in weights. I was training them in boxing. And it was, again, keeping me away from everything else that I didn't need to be doing. This was taking up all of my time. And I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with boxing.
What's your training schedule like?
Back then, it was a lot more rigorous. When I first got into it, this is all I wanted to do.
So the typical things that you see in the movie.
The typical
like
things you
that
see in a
type of
movie.
grind.
I was doing anything and everything I could to be there.
And training-wise, you would start at 5 a.m. every day?
5 a.m. every day, because I'd get up and I'd run, and then I'd go to the boxing gym at 9 a.m.
Run a mile, run 2 miles?
At the beginning, I was running a quarter mile maybe, you know,
Quarter
because
mile.
I started, I was heavy. I was like 220 pounds. I was really, really muscular. It was hard for me to run. But I just wanted to do it. I knew what I needed to be doing, and this was part of the job. So I was getting great opportunities. But after these 2 years of showing my face, and everybody knew me already, whenever I go somewhere, everybody knew me in the fighting community, I started getting better opportunities. And then in 2019, they started offering me bare-knuckle fights. February of 2020 was my first fight in bare-knuckle. And then, which went amazing. I won in the first round. I got a knockout. It was, it was bare-knuckle number 10. So it was, I was the beginning of this promotion. It was amazing to be part of that.
Do you like it more, bare-knuckle fighting, than MMA or boxing?
I do like it more. I love the promotion. I love boxing. Boxing is my original thing, you know. And MMA, I have so much respect for that. But just bare-knuckle is just, it's the fastest growing sport right now. Part of one of the biggest promotions. And then, so my first fight was for BKFC was February 2020. Then we all know that in March, COVID hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So what did you do then during COVID?
so during COVID,
Because you were having a come up, you were doing so well, everything was going great for you, you turned your life around.
and then somebody hit the emergency brake.
Take the rug out.
They hit the emergency brake. And so COVID hit right on my birthday, right at the beginning of March. Nothing, I pivoted, I like to think that people who are hustlers and have a hustler mentality figure things out. So I figured it out. I actually built a whole gym in my backyard. It was called the Jungle Gym. I had a boxing ring, I had the bags, I had anything you need, anything you could find in the gym, I had in my backyard. And I had 15, 20 people there a day, 5 days a week training at the Jungle Gym. I had my boxing coach, which I was blessed that he was my backdoor neighbor at the time. He moved now, but he was my backdoor neighbor. So he'd come around the block and we train every day. November 13th, which is a Friday, 2020. I'm fighting. His name is Donale Benedetto. I had studied him, for a month before the fight. I saw what he did when people rushed him, and I went over this thing with my coach a million times. And my moment came, and when they said fight, I took off and I hit him, and the punch landed perfect, and I made history.
You made history. That's the one world record for the fastest knockout in combat sports history. 3 seconds.
Yeah, 3 seconds.
I don't know if anyone will ever beat that.
No, and if you look at the video, it's less than 3 seconds. But I'll take the 3.
I'll take the 3, right? Yeah. But it's less than 3. No, I was looking at the video over and over again, and it's so fast that I couldn't even really see the punch.
Yeah.
I was trying to see it, and I'm like, rewind.
Yeah, it's a blur. It's a blur.
Yeah, it's a blur. It's so fast.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Did you guys talk after?
Yeah, I did. I actually talked to him after. They stitched him up.
Was he okay?
From what I heard, he got 17 stitches from his nose down to
scarred for life.
Yeah, and then I saw him after, and I never have any animosity towards anybody I'm fighting. I'm never.
That's what I was gonna ask you, because I've noticed that sometimes on Instagram I'll see you post pictures after the fight with the person that you just beat up. Right. So how does that work? You break someone's nose and then you're like, okay, we're cool.
Yeah, because you know what? It's a job. It's a job, and I've gotten beat up myself. I've lost a couple of my fights myself. Obviously, I go in there to do a job, and I go in there to win, but sometimes it's not your night. And there's a guy that you're going to carry this memory on forever. You know what I mean? When anybody looks back in history, you're going to be in pictures with this guy, either winning or losing, but you're going to be in it with him. And it's a camaraderie, at least for myself. Mm-hmm. Everybody's different. For myself, it's something I feel we carry forever. And again, I'm a guy who came off the streets with real beef, with guns, with people fighting, with people doing things where they really wanted to take your life. And now I'm stepping into something where
this is a job.
This is a job, and I know you're trying to feed your family like I'm trying to feed mine. So I have the utmost respect for you, and I get respect back. And it's worked out for me very well. I'm not the guy to get loud on Instagram. I'm not the guy to talk about your mom or your wife or anything or your kids. Because I don't want that done to me.
Right.
So it's worked out very well.
Yeah, you never have true anger towards them. It's a job, and
exactly.
You're there to.
And somebody that goes into a fight angry is going to lose the fight, because you're not in your right frame of mind. You're not going to go with the game plan because you're mad and you're trying to kill this guy.
How do you prepare for a fight?
Well, it depends who you're fighting. We look at some tape, and then we try to mimic what they do in fights, and you go over with your coach. We always have a little game plan. Your coach is in your corner screaming things at you the whole time, so you want to listen to that as you go. The hardest thing is to get mentally ready for a fight,
Yeah, how do you sync your mental with your physical?
It never syncs, physically, I never stop training. I'll be 42 now in a couple months, so at my age, I feel like if I take a day or two off, I feel terrible the third day, so I just continually, I work out 7 days a week. So physically, I'm always on point. Mentally it's always different. It's always different. You have good days, you have bad days. Sometimes you feel you're more than ready. Sometimes you question yourself, and I think that's just a human thing, And for anybody out there that fights that tells you they're not scared or not, any worries to go through there, it's a lie.
Did you ever feel that maybe you weren't tough enough?
I never felt that I wasn't tough enough. I just again, I'm a guy who went professional at 35. I'm going against guys who've been boxing since they were 9, 10, 16, 15, 20.
And do you feel it physically? Do you feel that disadvantage, or not at all?
Not at all. Not at all. It's something that just is more mental than anything else, because once I'm in there and the bell rings and the guy says fight, the age and experience and nothing, all that doesn't matter to me. Sometimes it shows. You'll see one guy look smoother and better than the other, but it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter. But to mentally prepare, I'm huge on reading books. I'm huge on listening to audiobooks, and I always try to keep just positive things and positive people around me. And that, especially in the back when I'm getting ready for a fight, when you're actually at the fight getting ready, I like positive people around me. No dumb questions and no dumb comments or nothing. I'm very strict when it comes to that.
So you mentioned that your training method and what you would do back then is not the same as how it is now. So what do you do now? Walk me through a day in your life when you're preparing for a fight, and then a day that you're not preparing for a fight.
Okay, so I'm always training for fights, no matter, even if I got one on schedule or not. I'm always training for fights in the sense of this. I wake up every day at 5 in the morning, and I go run between 2 to 4 miles, right? That's every day, and then from there I go to I go drop off my kids at school, and I go to weight train. After I weight train, I go to the boxing gym. And we do, it depends on what day it is, because you got days like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's just like mitts, bag with the coach. And then you got Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, it's sparring. This is where you're actually fighting, you know, with the headgear on, the big gloves. So that's that. I'm a person who needs to stay busy. They say idle hands is the devil's playground. So that means if you're not doing anything, you get yourself in trouble. So I'm constantly doing things from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep.
Well, you are quite productive then.
Very productive, as productive as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel tempted when you find yourselves in those moments where you're not doing much? Do you ever feel tempted to go back to your old lifestyle?
Not anymore. Not anymore. I think I'm over it. I think I've done everything that could be done. I've hung out in every spot you could hang out at. I've done it all. You know, I've danced with the devil already. So
too many times you're bored.
Too many times. Yeah, I'm over it. And now I take pride in being a good father. I got a 9-year-old son, he'll be 10 soon. You know, I got a 10-year-old nephew that I'm both their biggest role models. They look up to me for everything. And I'm totally involved in their life, from football to basketball to training them boxing, you know.
Well, knowing everything that it takes to fight and all the hits you get and all of that, what would you say if your kid ever wanted to fight?
You know what? Anything he wants to do, I'll support him 100%, you know. I'd maybe try to talk him out of it at the beginning, but if it's something he pushes on, then he has my full support 100%. He has many other skills that I hope he goes after besides fighting. But yeah, you know, fighting is a tough sport. It's a tough way to make a living.
It is.
He's growing up a lot easier and a lot better than I did. So, you know, I wouldn't want him to go that route. But if he did, he'd have
you
full
would support him. Yeah. Do you feel that maybe not having your dad around until you were an adult made you a better father because you realized what you didn't want?
Yes. Not having my dad around as a kid, I feel plays has a big impact on how I father my children. I actually have a great father. He's an amazing guy. You know, as a kid, he went through whatever he went through with my mom. You don't know that as a kid. You don't know what happens.
Yeah.
You're just growing up with a single mom. When I became a young adult, and I had children, and I was in prison, and I thought I was this hardcore guy, I always pushed back against him. You know, whenever he tried to give me advice, I never wanted to hear it. It was in my head. It was too late. I kind of developed this anger towards him for no reason. Just in my own head, I had this anger towards him. And then what's funny is that when I had that 3-second knockout, 3-second knockout reached every city of every country of everywhere around the world. It went viral. Hit every corner. I was getting calls from France, Russia, Italy, and everybody. I spoke to everyone in the world.
Must have felt amazing.
Yeah, my father is a writer. He's an author. He's written 5 books. One of his last books was a New York Times bestseller, yes. And he actually founded this newspaper called Diario de Cuba, and it's in Spain and all of South America.
So he found out about that, like, in the press?
Yeah, so listen to this. Way. Yeah, listen. The news reaches Spain, right? Reaches this newspaper. And somebody sees it and goes, man, I think his name is Nestor Diaz de Villegas. So I go, man, I think this is Nestor's son, you know, because my name is Ulysses Diaz de Villegas. The name is very rare. Like, man, I think it's Nestor's son. So they emailed my dad from Spain to Los Angeles. Like, hey, is this your kid? After 5 years of not speaking not one word to each other, in 5 years, he calls me and he tells me how proud he is of me, and you know, and it's amazing. And from that moment forward, from the moment I spoke to him till today, we've been the best of friends.
Especially that is the Cuban sport, so he was even more proud of you. That's like football in America. No, and me and my dad have lived very parallel lives without even trying. My dad went to prison as a young man too. He was a political prisoner in Cuba. You know, I'm out here causing trouble, going to prison. So without even knowing, without even trying, we live very parallel lives. And we're, you know, he's my dad. We're same DNA. We're basically the same. He's a very good people person. He's a very good talker, very good writer. And I see myself now that I've been able to clear my head and be a better person. That you reconnected at a good time too. Before you weren't ready, and then he came at the best time when you were already set on what you wanted to do with your life. And right. Ooh. Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you. And so you are engaged to WWE star Dana Brooke. Yeah. How did you guys meet? That's a good story too. I'm sure she's also played a positive role in your life. Oh man, she's been the most amazing person in my life, and one of the most amazing persons in my life. Motivational, inspirational.
So December of 2019, I have an MMA fight. I'm training with Yoel Romero, which is a very, he's a famous Cuban fighter. So I have a weigh-in. My fiance Ashley, Dana Brooke, she's American. She's from Cleveland, Ohio. And Yoel is Cuban, at the time, speaks less English than he does now, but he has almost no English. So we're in the car, leaving the weigh-in. I have to go get an IV to rehydrate, and we're gonna go get some food. And I get in the zone. Like the week of my fight, I turn off my phones. I don't speak to nobody unless you're in my immediate circle. So she's in town, and her and Yoel knew each other from doing things through WWE and stuff. So she's like, hey, I'm in town. What are you guys up to? You doing anything? He's like, I got a fighter. He fights tomorrow, so I need to take him to get an IV and some food. And so we're driving down to Sushi Saki on Sunset.
Oh, okay.
And
Miami date.
Yeah, exactly. And they're kind of trying to communicate. And he passes me the phone. He's like, hey, do me a favor, tell her to meet us here. We're gonna go eat here. And I see her. I'm on FaceTime. I see her. I go, oh wow, you're beautiful. Hey, blah, 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 and I tell her where we're headed to, and I leave it at that. She tells me that she immediately fell in love with me as soon as she saw me. Yeah, she's like, man, it was love at first sight when she saw me, but again, I'm in a different mindset. I was being polite for a second. She was beautiful, but I was just being polite for the moment, and I gave her back the phone, got to the restaurant. She was coming down from Boca. We're already in Miami, so I ate. And I left. I went home to go get some rest and
right. You didn't think anything of it.
Nothing. I didn't think nothing of it. That night, the night before my fight, that night when she left, she DMs me. I'm talking about blue checks. She has a blue check. Right. So she DMs me and she's like, hey, I missed you at the sushi place. Oh, I'm like, oh look, I'm sorry. I got a fight. I kind of zone out. Luckily I even came on Instagram. I was like, I guess I was bored. I was like. She did make the move, the first move. Yeah, she always says it because of her we're together, which is true. So she's like, man, look, I leave town tomorrow. I have to go. I'm going with WWE. Can you get a ticket for my friend to get into the fight? I go, yeah, no problem. Next day I go, I fight, I win. The day after that, she danced like, hey, congratulations, I saw you won. Oh, thank you. And then we just developed this communication there. Got her phone number through DM. Started speaking on FaceTime. Love. Yeah. Exactly, and then it was 2 weeks of talking to her before I ever even met her in person because she was out of town. Yeah, and this is like something I hadn't done since middle school. I hate talking on the phone, and this is like a constant thing.
No, and then the DMs, like who would?
Yeah, exactly. And then when she came down to Florida, and we met, we ate, and just hung out and got to know each other, and it's been. Again, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, and I gotta thank God for this one because he put one of the best people, a beautiful woman, a great woman in my life. It's, and a great role model for my children and just a great person overall in my life. And her family is amazing, which is another thing, everybody
you got everything with
cohesive, very, very, very great.
Wow, that's amazing. And she came at the perfect time in your life when you were already doing well.
Yeah, perfect time. And this is what I was telling you about timing too, where looking back on 2016, February, when I got locked up, I thought it was the end of my life. Now looking at it, now in 2023, I thank God that happened, because if that wouldn't happen, I would still be thinking I could be getting away with stuff, and who knows, it could have been worse. And but I got to this point where I left everything behind. I got to this point, and it's nothing but positivity. I have the fastest knockout in combat sports history. I have 24 professional fights. I'm 20-4, 20 wins with 4 losses in all different types of fights, from MMA to boxing to bare-knuckle. I have opportunities like this that I get to speak to you. I've been on the news. I've been able to. I feed the homeless. I have a fight, I think, called Fighting versus Hunger, where we used to go feed the homeless once a month. And life is just it's done a 180, man. It's been amazing.
It's crazy how quickly it changed for the better too. Because the majority of your life you were doing, you were not following the best path, and then now in just a few years, really.
And I think it completely has changed. It's done a 180 completely, and I feel the reason behind that is because, like we were talking about at the beginning, I owned up to all the bullshit. Can I say bad words here?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. I owned up to all my own shit. I took accountability. I put my foot down. I was sick of my own stuff, and I never looked back. Once I left all the bull behind, I never looked back, and I just kept going. Now, that's not to say that I never have the mentality of like that I'm gonna go backwards. That's gone completely. That now from here on out, it's only forward. But it's not to say that I wake up every day saying, oh yeah, I love waking up at 5 to go run. You know, sometimes that alarm goes off and I'm like, oh my god.
And this is Saturday and Sunday too?
This is Saturday and Sunday too.
Wow.
And Sunday is, I just did 8 miles on Sunday. Sunday is a long run.
What time do you go to sleep?
10, 11, 12. Sometimes like yesterday, like at 9:30, I was kind of dozing off already. You know, it depends. On my body, but sometimes I'm hooked on a Netflix thing and I can't go to sleep, you know. And I feel doctors might not agree with me, but I'm a guy that I feel like I work well with less sleep. I do that a lot, and then let's say like 2 or 3 weeks into it, I'll have that day where like I just want to sleep all day. Like I want to no boxing, no running, no nothing. I'll sleep all day, you know.
Yeah, you need that.
But I do as much as possible.
I want to talk a little bit about fighting itself.
Okay.
And some of the details of it. So, for example, how do you mentally prepare to take a hit, to take a punch to the face, if at all? Because I know that once you're in there, the adrenaline kicks in, but
there is no mentally getting prepared.
You just
no.
take
You
it.
practice. You know, like I said, I do sparring. Sparring at my gym is 3 times a week. You know, I'm getting older. I want to take less hits than I you know, in practice than I need to. So I'll go once or twice a week. You know, you get hit there, and you learn what to do or not to do, not to get hit next time or in a real fight. But there is no getting mentally prepared to get hit. You know, once you get hit, you're either like, oh, this is nothing, or like, oh shit, this hurt. You know.
But you never really feel it at the moment, right?
At the moment, no. Your adrenaline is pumping. Your blood is hot. Everything's going on. Especially when you're fighting, the lights are on you. There's this crowd noise. There's a ton of things, you know. So yeah, no, it's nothing you could get prepared for.
Who is someone that you haven't fought yet that you would love to fight?
Jake Paul.
How many more fights do you think you have in you?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a number set in my head. Originally, when I got to 42, I wanted to kind of slow down and you know, step into the business side of things. We'll just see how it goes. Right now, I feel great. I feel healthy.
Run with it.
Yeah, good opportunities coming my way, so I'm just running with it.
If you weren't fighting, is there any other career that you would have wanted to do? Or if not, maybe one that you want to do after this?
Well, I would love to be a commentator. You know, I would for fighting.
That's appropriate.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for someone who's, you know, also struggling, not going down the right path, getting in a lot of fights, or just in a lot of trouble in general, and they feel like they can't get out of it? What advice would you have for them to overcome that?
Okay, so first, if they're getting in trouble and they're going on that path where they're getting in trouble, you know, my example would be like, let's say they're getting in trouble for fighting, step into a gym. The reason I did it, where like I always thought I was this tough guy, and I always thought I was this fighter. And then when you step into a place where there's real fighters, you find out that you have nothing. You are nothing compared to, you know, you were nothing that you thought you were.
You're there with your people.
Right, exactly. And then so get in there, and that's a great place to let out frustrations, and you know, and get your mind right. As for advice for somebody young trying to do, whether it's fighting, whether it's journalism, whatever it is, my main word that I use all the time is consistency. Consistency. Stay consistent. When you start, nobody's going to pay attention to you. Nobody's going to care that you're doing it. Nobody's going to want to take the time to listen to what you have going on. But once 3 months passes by, 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half, 2 years, and people see you're still doing this, everybody's going to jump back on with you.
It's like you proved yourself.
Exactly. And everybody needs to prove themselves. First to themselves, and then to other people. And if you want help from anybody, nobody that's been doing a career, and I'll give an example of fighting because that's my career. Nobody that's been fighting 10 years is gonna take their time with a guy that he comes to the gym once, 3 times a week, and then he's gone for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you come to me like, oh man, hey, I really want to fight. Like, brother, you've been in the gym 5 days out of the last month. Like, I can't take you serious. You know what I mean? Now, from that moment on, he's in the gym for 5 months straight every day. On that 5th month, hey, look, I want to help you now. Now I want to help you. You know, do you still need my advice? Here it is. No, people want to see that you're doing, what you need to be doing too. How
long did it take for people to start taking you seriously? Did your history ever get in the way of that? Oh yeah, absolutely got in the way of that. But I would say it took about a good 2 years. You know, and I have a great friend of mine. Shout out to Hugo, man. He said it best, because throughout my life, I always try to get my stuff together. I always wanted structure. I always wanted what I have now. So even when I was doing bad, I'd take this time out of a couple months,
And like, oh, look, you know, and I would tell him, look, oh, I'm working out and I'm doing this. Okay. You know, 3-6 months down, I'd be right back to where I was at, you know. So he saw me do that multiple times in my life.
Yeah, it was hard.
Finally, after 2 years, you know, he tells me like, you got it, you know, you got it. You're so far ahead that you can never go back, you know.
Yeah, but all it took was you really wanting it and being tired of your own stuff and all of that. What do you think it takes to truly change? Because, you know, a lot of people say that nobody can ever change. They still have like their original intentions, but what do you think it takes to really change?
No, anybody could change. Anybody can change if they really want to do anything that they want to do, and you know, and it's a total 180 from what you're doing. Like right now, if you want to fight, you know, for example, all it is again, keyword consistency. Getting into a gym or getting into whatever field it is you want to do, and being there every day. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have days that you feel super inspired, and you're gonna have the next day you're gonna feel like, man, I'm done with this shit. I never want to do it again. Those are the important days, because that's when you got to come back the next day. The day you don't feel like doing it, and the day you feel like it's crap, and the day that's the most important day, because that's the day you got to come back the next day. And once you do that, you're gonna see you could only go up from there. It's only gonna be progress.
Which can be tough though. How do you build your confidence on and off the ring?
You know, that's something you got to deal with yourself too. You know, thank God I've you know, developed a great circle around me of people who push me constantly. One thing about me is I hold myself accountable. So for example, with my career, if I don't show up to the gym for 2 days, my coaches are calling me, hey, where you at? So now I'm accountable to them, you know. My kids, I'm accountable to them. So I have so much of a driving force, and I've made myself so accountable to other people that it drives me to just do better.
And your family now, you went through everything you went through in the beginning, but now I'm sure they're really proud of you. Has your relationship with your mom and anyone else improved?
Yeah, my mom is my everything. She's, you know, she's my right-hand woman. She's so proud of me, you know, so proud of me. She worried for so long. She prayed for me every night, which she still does pray for me night and day, but for different reasons, you know. She has less worries, you know, about something happening to me on the street, you know. Now she goes to my fights, and she
get nervous there, like, oh my God.
No, she doesn't watch the fights. I'll be fighting there, she's watching like this, you know. And then like for the 3-second knockout, she wasn't watching, and everybody screams, what happened?
Was it him?
Yeah, thank God it wasn't.
I know, it must be so hard to watch that, like, as a mom.
Yeah, it's tough.
She must have not been that, like, excited about the career choice.
No, she wasn't, but she knew I was good at it, you know. And where we're at today, she's very proud of me. She saw I've changed my lifestyle.
Everything just came full
circle.
And
it's something you project, you know what I mean? When you're pushing great and preaching great.
When you're doing good, everyone else around you starts doing good. Energy is real.
Exactly, the energy, absolutely.
Sure. Who do you think is your biggest competitor?
Myself. My biggest competitor is myself. Yeah, you know, I look in the mirror and that guy, I gotta, you know, I'm striving to beat that guy, you know, or whoever that guy was yesterday. I gotta get better and better and better in every aspect. You know what I mean? Whether it's financially, spiritually, mentally, you know, it's an everyday struggle. Like I said, I don't wake up every day in a chipper mood, you know. I wake up sometimes and I question myself, like, damn, do I really want to do this? And I get up, I do it, and once I come back from doing it, I'm like, what the hell is that wrong with me? Of course I want to do this.
Yeah, it happens to all of us, even doing everything.
It does, I mean, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Well, Uly, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. You are an amazing inspiration. You're a great example of what it takes to change your life around. That it's never too late, no matter how old you are, no matter what you've been through. Like, it's never too late to do the right thing and be a better version of yourself. So thank you for sharing your story and proving that to everyone as well.
Thank you very much. I've had a great time.
Thank you.
I feel like it was a good therapy session for me. So thank you. Yeah.
We had a little bit of therapy for free.
Yeah, for real. And thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys.